Hi, I'm Doug Ross, editorial page editor at the Times, here with Connie Lawson, current Secretary of State, for an endorsement interview for, of course, Secretary of State in Indiana. Also in the room with us are Bob Heiss, editor of the Times, and on the other side of the lens, you won't see him, Brian Vernellis, our videographer. So we should probably begin with, you're the incumbent, but you weren't elected to that. We ought to talk about how you got into that office and why you think you're the best candidate for this position.
Sure. Well, if I could, since I've been here before, I'd just like for people in Northwest Indiana to know a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Hendricks County, lived on a farm, have 2 children and 6 grandchildren. Met my husband when we were in high school, and we got married young. We've been married ever since. We have a business called Lawson and Company, which is a real estate and auctioneering company in Danville, Indiana. I think one of the reasons I was appointed is because of my former experience. First of all, I was a county clerk in Hendricks County for 8 years. And then when I was term limited, I ran for the Senate and served there for 16 years. And I'm proud of my record in the Senate. And I think that people who know me and who worked with me in the Senate knew me as someone who was always willing to listen, somebody who wanted to hear all of the facts and was able to reach across the aisle and work with both parties.
Right. And so we of course know what happened to the elected Secretary of State was Charlie White, got lost of position after being convicted of vote fraud. And so you're stepping in, doing this role. What have you seen so far in the office that you like, that you think you'd change?
Well, thanks for asking, because I absolutely love the job of Secretary of State. And so the day I walked in the door, I knew that I had some special challenges because of the situation you just mentioned. And so we rolled up our sleeves and got to work right away to make sure that we were able to give the public a different perception of the Secretary of State's office. So we worked really hard doing that. The Secretary of State's office has 4 divisions, obviously the elections, but also business services, securities, and auto dealers. And I've certainly enjoyed working in all 4 of those divisions, and I think we've had some accomplishments in each of those divisions.
Okay.
Could you share just a couple accomplishments that you feel, just point to a couple for us, and I think the readers would appreciate that to kind of get a little insight into what has been accomplished.
Sure. Well, an ongoing project that we have in our business services division that I'm really proud of that we've made progress, and we've got some work yet to do. Is one of the reasons why I want to continue this work, and that is a project called Business One Stop. It's been talked about for years, but now we've actually got a vendor in the door working on that, and phase 1 of Business One Stop will be an opportunity for businesses to do everything that they need to do with state government with one full service portal, entering one username and password, and doing what they need to do with state government under that full service portal. Phase 1 will be the Secretary of State's office, the Department of Revenue, and the Department of Workforce Development. And so it'll be, a year to 18 months before businesses see that progress, but we're really proud that we've gotten this far. As I said, it's been talked about for a number of years.
Okay. Everybody's talking about the economy and what they would do to foster job creation and so forth. How would you as Secretary of State want to do that?
Well, thank you for asking that question as well, because I mentioned our securities division, and one of the recent developments in our securities division is where the legislature passed a law regarding crowdfunding. Our office got the rules written, and they were effective the day the bill became effective, which was July 1. And so what crowdfunding does, it's an ability for an entrepreneur in Indiana to reach an Indiana investor by using the power of the internet to reach the crowd. That's why it's called crowdfunding. We've had a great deal of enthusiasm. In fact, this morning I just left the Purdue Innovation Park in Crown Point. And we talked about the crowdfunding law and the crowdfunding rules, and people are embracing it. So what I think it's going to do for the economy is it's going to help our small businesses get off the ground earlier. It's going to give them some tools that they need in order to be able to raise capital.
Okay. we're obviously concerned about the election coming up, and you know, particularly after the last election. What are some of the things that you have as goals for the election division?
Well, I think we've done a lot of work in the election division, and one of my goals when I walked in the door was to help counties help elected officials understand the benefits of vote centers, because I truly believe it's a way for counties to reduce their cost of elections and a way to make it more convenient for voters, a way to have better trained poll workers as well. And so that's, you know, my first year in office, we had 12 regional meetings so that we could educate election officials, voter registration and county clerks about that process and what it means. Lots of other things have been done as well recently. When I was in the Senate, first of all, I actually carried the bill that would allow online voter registration. And so just this past week, in conjunction with National Voter Registration Day, we introduced a new app for iPhones and Android, excuse me, that would allow someone to register to vote right on their iPhone. So we want to make it easier for people to be able to register and more convenient for them to vote.
I think we were coming off a very low participation in the primary. I think it was pretty, and so do you think that some of the things you're doing and you hope to do will be increasing that participation? How can you increase it? How can you, what do you think that you can accomplish? Because I think that we want to get many people voting, obviously.
Absolutely, and we do want people to understand how important it is. And so we've been doing a couple of things. First of all, in 2013, my first legislative session, we asked legislators to support us by allowing us to have a voter outreach program. And so they appropriated the money, and we do have a voter outreach program in order to let voters understand how important one vote is. And we tell the story of Henry Shoemaker in that voter outreach ad, where basically he was the single vote that decided the state representative, and then that representative was a single vote that decided who the U.S. Senator was, and then that single vote was the vote that decided that the United States and Mexico would go to war, and the United States then gained a lot more territory than they had at the time. In fact, I think it's the single most land mass that was added to the United States since the Louisiana Purchase, is what I've been told. So we use that as an example about how important it is. But I really believe that turnout is driven by the candidates and the issues that are on the ballot. And so it's important that obviously that we have good qualified candidates. But the other thing that we're doing is to make sure that we understand what our turnout really is that we did a voterless maintenance project, which you may be aware of. And so, the Pew Research Center did a study, and they said that in our country, over 1.8 million deceased voters remain on the rolls. And in our country, over 2.75 million people are registered in more than one state. And so Indiana is no different, and after every election, our office gets calls about why someone went to the polls and why did they see a long-gone loved one still on the list. And they don't understand that, they told the poll workers the election before, and when they go back, it's still there. Well, it's because we hadn't had the support from the legislature or had the ability to do a statewide voter registration list maintenance project, and so we've done that. It's the first one since 2006. So what we learned was that from the postcards that were returned to us as non-deliverable, that had we had our voter list more clean in 2012, instead of a 58% turnout, Indiana would have turned out 71% of its voters, which would have been one of the 3 highest states in the country.
Okay. And of course, Indiana has rules that let you vote absentee and vote early and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, should we make it easier for people to do that? For instance, if you work, up here especially, people commute, and so you're not technically on the job from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., but you might be commuting and it might be difficult to get there in that time frame, but you can't get the absentee ballot because it doesn't quite apply. You know, does Indiana need to change those?
Well, in 2003, the legislature passed a law that said that you could vote absentee for any reason. You don't have to state a reason. You don't have to be out of town. You don't have to be kept at work without having time off. But you can get an absentee ballot for any reason. But I really believe that that's where vote centers come in as well, because vote centers require satellite voting locations, and they allow anyone in Lake County to vote at any one of those voting locations in Lake County. So you wouldn't have to be on one side of the county and make it back to your home precinct, which was on the other side of the county.
Okay. Bob?
What's the campaign like for you? Are you going, is it door to door? Is it media driven? This is your first editorial board. What's it like? You know, what kind of, give us a sense of what your days are like.
Well, today we started out at Calumet High School, and we did an important project that I forgot to talk about as well, is our financial literacy project. And so we are very passionate, I am especially, about financial literacy. And we go into high schools and we talk to them about budgeting and how to manage their finances and not getting in trouble with their credit cards, especially when they go to college. And then we visit senior communities as well. But this morning, for an example, we started out at Calumet High School, and then we went to the Purdue Research Park, where we talked to people about our Business One-Stop project that I explained, as well as our crowdfunding law and rules. Then we're coming here, and then we're switching drivers, and I'm going to end up at a political event in Muncie this evening.
Okay.
Is there any forum or anything where the candidates get together? Your opponents will be together on a stage or anything? Is there anything like that in the campaign?
I don't see anything scheduled right now. We have had invites to several candidates' nights, and we're looking to make sure that we can get to some of those. So I'm sure there'll have to be that opportunity.
Okay. Is there anything we didn't ask that we should have?
Well, I think I would just like everybody to know that I think I have a record of being able to reach across the aisle, work with both parties. My record in the Senate, I hope, speaks for itself. I worked on lots of things that dealt with disadvantaged individuals. Like I carried the law that separated the Department of Child Services away from the big FSSA so that the state could put more emphasis on children who have been abused or neglected. I worked on a lot of mental health, for an example, access to mental health drugs. I worked on those issues. Worked on issues related to developmental disabilities and helping those families get through those issues. Carried the bill that required the HPV vaccination required the notification to parents that the HPV vaccination was available. And have worked on a lot of other health issues as well, including lupus and some of those other things. So those were the things that I was passionate about. I loved the public policy side, but I'm really looking forward to continuing my work in the Secretary of State's office and continuing some of the projects that we have going on now.
Okay. Well, we've been talking with Connie Lawson, candidate for Secretary of State and the incumbent. I'm Doug Ross, editorial page editor. Thank you for viewing.